panelists of the DELT COP, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Janet, and welcome everybody. I'm Nicola Pallett from Rhodes University, part of the Haltasa Digital Learning and Teaching team, and I'm facilitating and have organized a session today in collaboration with my colleague Elizabeth Boy from University of the Western Cape. So Elizabeth, maybe I'll hand over to you just to say a little bit more about, to share with our colleagues what today is going to be focusing on. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. Thank you, Nicola. Let me give a background about today's session. So our lunch and learn today is going to be focusing on institutional AI policies and guidelines in South Africa. We're here to share our own best practices together, and we want everyone who's attending to share what their own institution is also doing around the AI policies and guidelines, especially in the teaching and learning environment. So we also thinking about the use of generative AI within our own institution. We want to know what is it that we are putting in place to allow for the use of these new technologies within our environment. And also we want to find out what are the tensions or impact that remains to be seen in whether we do have regulations and governance that can promote the use of these new technologies within our own institutions as well. So during this lunch and learn session, we're going to hear from cross-institutional input from different institutions with regards to the different areas that they are focusing on in terms of AI. They will reflect on the development, the practical application, as well as the implementation of AI policies or guidelines at their own institution. We also asked our panelists to also reflect as they give us their own input to reflect on the processes and stakeholder involved in crafting those policies or guidelines. They should reflect on the relevant context in the policy making and implementation within their own institution, or if they are also involved in national agendas, what are they think around that. And we also want them to reflect on how these policies and guidelines are being used in practice by either the lecturers or students, or even in the administrative sections of their universities. And lastly, we want them to give us some insights in terms of if they have experienced some challenges in the implementation of these policies or guidelines by either the students or lecturers or academics or their institution, especially with regards to the ethical dilemmas or ethical consideration that we need to be mindful of. And from now on, I'm going to hand over to Nicola to introduce our first panelist, and also give us a structure in terms of how the session will unfold going forward as well. Thank you, Nicola.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So, colleagues, today we are actually going on a whirlwind tour across 3 different institutions, and we're going to do brief introductions for each, and they're going to have a 10-minute presentation. It will be quite rough and ready. They'll be all going after each other, and we will be keeping your questions. So just if you have questions, post them in the chat, and we'll keep a record of them, and we'll have a Q&A session following all the presentations, followed by an open discussion. I just want to see if our people are here. Gloria from the University of Johannesburg. Are you here, Gloria?
I'm here.
Wonderful. And Juliet, I see you are here. Great. And Anne.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Nicola.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think we're going to kick off with Anne, because I know you have to go to another meeting. So Professor Anne Verhoef is the director of the Northwest University Artificial Intelligence Hub and is also professor in philosophy in the Faculty of Humanities at the Northwest University. Thank you very much, everyone. And now I'm going to hand over to Anne.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola, and hello, Gloria and Juliet. Thank you also, Elizabeth. I just want to see if I can share. I assume I can, and want to make sure if you can see that. Are you seeing my PowerPoint,
Yes.
Nicola? So I'll
Yes.
just make it bigger now.
All good?
Oh,
Thank you.
good. Okay, thank you. Just quickly, so I am a professor in philosophy, but by the end of last year, the university asked me to help as a director here at the newly established AI hub at the university. And I think the reason is definitely because I've been involved with academic integrity matters for the last few years. So, and of course, I had to get involved with the AI development at the university. And that's why I am now running the AI Hub, something new. I can say more about that later. Let me first say something before I get to the questions that you asked us to prepare. Just say something about AI in general. I think most of you, perhaps older people, know the song of Climby Fisher that love changes everything. And I think the same applies for AI. It definitely changes everything. Not only in education, it's going to change everything. But especially for higher education, I think it will change everything. Our learning and teaching, the assessments, the research, the way we do supervision, administration. And it's not only superficial changes. I think it will be massive fundamental changes for education on all levels that will take place. And my fear is that not everybody is facing this at the moment, that there's a lot of people that are just ignoring it, a lot of our lecturers especially, and I think that poses a huge risk because students are already experimenting with it, and the future of work, the future of education will change. So we need to stay relevant. I think you all know it, but that's just a note to start off. So I'm going to answer the few questions that we got and rather focus then on questions in the end from the people who attend. So just to give you an idea what institutional processes we followed here at Northwest University. So in the beginning of 2024, a steering committee was established by the University Management Committee. And they positioned it under IT. And that was quite an interesting move because it affects teaching, learning, and research. Everybody was involved with it or got involved. But in the end, it was positioned under IT. But at least on that committee, we had faculty representatives, teaching, learning, library. And then quickly they developed a framework policy that basically said, let's embrace AI in an ethical and responsible manner. But by the end of 2024, things were, I think, just running away from us. So the AI hub was established, and I was asked to coordinate in all the AI matters at the university across teaching, learning, research, even AI tools, things like that. Just that there's a central place that somebody try to keep track of what's going on. So at the moment, we're working on a AI policy, a new one. We only had a framework policy, but that will then be going through all the committees, the IT committee, the Senate, everything, all the institutional places that it needs to be approved. Just a word about our new AI policy that we are tabling now. Our aim is to keep it as short as possible. To keep it agile because the AI world is changing so quickly, to keep it authentic. There are so many generic AI policies that you can ask AI to write, but we want one for our university, and that's really relevant for our context. Another thing, I think the motivation for any AI policy is crucial. Otherwise, people will just not understand why we have such a policy. And of course, in AI, we realize it's for ethical reasons. AI affects everything on an ethical level. It's operational level. It's in terms of tools that needs to be bought, safety, security things, and of course then the academical side of it. How are we going to incorporate it, use it? What's the best way? And we got a clear, I think, view in our policy that we want to embrace it, as I said, but also it's coming strong now through in our discussions is to have it in a human-centered way. So the rest you can see there, I think we're trying our best. Just a last comment, the guidelines for the ethical and responsible use, that's part of our academic integrity policy. Perhaps something else to take note of. Second question was, how are different stakeholders, including our academic staff, students, admin, all of them involved in this process? So we tried a lot to get people on board. We had a lot of roadshows for staff on different campuses, for students to get their feedback, to hear their concerns, to hear their needs. The AI steering committee, we made us as representative as possible. You'll see there from the faculty, from students, we had representation, from management. So I think we've got good representation. And what we did, we asked per faculty, the people who are really interested in joining, and not ask just, say, the dean or the deputy dean or something like that. The training for AI was the biggest need. People were not, I want to say, they're not so worried about the policy, but training how to use AI. So our policies and guidelines then applied at the moment by lecturers and students. So it definitely varies. Some people use it eagerly. Others are definitely hesitant, even afraid to use it. And as soon as we start with training with AI, any training, the questions immediately goes to academic integrity issues. That's our experience. And we worked hard this last 6 months to really update our academic integrity policy and all the guidelines for AI. Because AI is developing so quickly, we had to get that ready, not only the AI policy. And the feedback from our institution, again, there's a lot of enthusiasm, I must say. In the committee, we have a lot of discussion. A lot of people are excited. A lot of people are overwhelmed as well, that are really feeling this is too much change. We already are exhausted as lecturers. We have already students that struggle to keep up just with the basic work we expect them. Now suddenly AI is also there. So we tried, I think it's an emotional challenge as well, not only an educative or training process that's taking place. There's the most uncertainty, again, about what we get with this training is on academic integrity. And quickly we get to issues about detection tools, assessments, and things like that, practical matters. I'm going fast because we've got only 10 minutes. What challenges do we have or encounter so far? We have the question of the availability of AI tools. We know the paid versions are better. So students and even lecturers who can afford them have an unfair advantage in the end. Also, the paid versions have better security settings. Some of the free versions don't have security settings at all. If you upload something there, it becomes part of the algorithm, or it's publicly available. So we are trying to think of ways to give access to paid versions to all students that need to solve that. We are thinking, will LMS do? Will something different AI tool, specific one do? But that's a huge issue, and I think it's a global issue, the first one. The second one remains highly relevant, and that's the need for training. But I can mention we developed an AI course for students. We developed it over December and January and launched it beginning of February. An AI course for academic and career success, where students can get in the end a certificate from the NWU that I completed this course, but I will also get a career plan, because that's the aim of that course, to take you through different tools, ask you questions, and get a nice career plan for the next few years in your life. So it's a sort of a double purpose that it serves. And we also developed now a AI course for lecturers to adapt their assessments and incorporate AI. And we use Perkins AI assessment scale for that. So we are finishing, or development is completion would be by end of May. We're going to launch it beginning of July. We found that the problem it's not incorporating AI in the teaching learning activities, but rather how to think about assessment. Otherwise, we're running around and trying to catch students who are using AI while we actually want them to use AI in an ethical and responsible way. But how to change the assessments to do that, I think, became our biggest challenge. So we are really excited about this new course we developed for assessment. Academic integrity, I think we all have that risk or problem with AI. But I want to say we need to rethink and redesign, reformulate our outcomes, and then adopt our assessments. So we have to address academic integrity from that side. I think we made a mind shift, at least from the committee side at Northwest University, to think in that direction. Research also, it becomes a bigger problem now with the development of such strong research tools. I think an important thing we are also agreeing on here in the research environment is that with postgraduate degrees, it's not a product that will be so important in the end, but rather the process. And there will be points where you will have to evaluate that the student read anything, and do they have an idea what's going on? Can they contextualize it? So I think it will much more be process evaluated degrees that we have in future. And of course, we can't keep up with AI. It's developing so fast. And that's what I wanted to say. I can show, if there are more time in the end, Nicola, some statistics of how we reported unethical use of AI at our university, perhaps show our policy and some of the courses. But that's from me for the intro. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. And just on the link that I posted in the chat, it's an open bibliography that was created by colleagues who are part of the Digital Education Learning for Learning and Teaching Community of Practice that is hosted by USAF, but also has people from different other professional organizations as well, such as Haltasa, for example. And we do encourage you to have a look at that and maybe, email us your links to your resources, anything publicly available. We would love to continue to curate those. You'll see there's a special section for AI related policies, resources. So thank you very much. And we'll come back. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us a little bit. I know you're only here for the hour, Anne.
Yes, yeah.
But I think let's move to Elizabeth. Would you like to introduce Juliet for us?
I thought we can ask one question that is already posted on the chat for Prof. Before. Yeah, there is one question. Can you tell us what strategies you have used to center the pedagogical and learning aspects? Do you emphasize the detection and academic integrity issues in your training? At VET, we also have Perkins and FEZE assessment framework, which lecturers find useful for rethinking their assessment and feedback.
Yeah, of course, that differs from, I would say, subject group to subject group. So, and we definitely want to move away. I like the de-emphasizing of the detection. So we are really trying to rethink what we want students to learn. What are the outcomes of the modules? How can they learn through the assessments? So assessments for learning. So all of that, we develop some examples in our training now for the different, at least for the different faculties, to see how we can continue from there. So in the Perkins scale, for example, let's say on level 4, where you're allowed to use AI, the question immediately becomes, how will you evaluate then what and how the students used it? Is it good or bad? How does it fit into your whole module, the outcomes of your module? So we also developed some rubrics there, and we had a lot of brainstorming in our team here. We developed that, but also with AI. Of course, you can ask these questions to AI. So I think it's a continuous process to move in that direction, to create assessments and opportunities for learning that will encourage AI use by students, and not create a scenario where we run around and try to find detection tools that catch out students. But I must add immediately, we also have certain assessments that do not allow AI use, and for good reasons. And we want lecturers to also motivate why they don't want any AI use. And then students still use AI. And then we depend on certain detection tools. And then we have some intervention, educative intervention. Let me stop there.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Now I'm going to introduce our new or our next panelist, Dr. Juliet Stottenkamp. She is Director, Center for Innovative Education and Communication Technologies, SIT at the University of the Western Cape. Dr. Juliet, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm just going to share, and then you just let me know if you can. Are you able to see, Elizabeth?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Juliet Stottenkamp from the University of the Western Cape, and thank you very much for inviting me. I've met Prof. Arnay. Well done regarding your hub. It's really fantastic. And I've met him now because I've joined the AI circle, and I think it's important that we speak to each other. So I'm going to be presenting shortly, but what we are really also concerned about, as Prof. Arnay said, we have to embrace this constant change. We're concerned about academic integrity, but on the ground, the students are actually saying, but how should I know how to ethically embrace it? So we just say ethical usage, but are we thinking about the student? Do they actually know? They're first years, they come from high school, you know, and what does it mean? And then the lecturers also say, but I don't even know how to use AI. And so the stance we took is definitely, I agree with you, Prof. Arnay. It has come to disrupt our spaces. We cannot ignore it. And there are lecturers that still want to ignore that the students are using AI. So we've taken definitely not a silo mentality at the University of the Western Cape. And AI is everybody's business. If they think they're going to just send a student to our center or to somebody to help solve the problem, I think the academics and the professional support and all the teaching and learning specialists, everybody are realizing that this is their business too. And so it's important that we need to continuously think, as we take on all other emerging technologies, about the people, the processes, the technology, and then in the guidelines and policies that we develop. At UWC, we have developed AI guidelines, Elizabeth, you know that, and we had a very collaborative process as well, Prof. Arnay. We had to meet with different members on the task team. We created a task team, and then we shared the guidelines, and then the Senate Academic Planning Committee also then created a workshop, and we called us stakeholders across campus to engage with the process, and that was very important. We definitely steered away from only focusing on detection, and as you mentioned, pre-engagement literacy is very important. So what I'm seeing on the ground, the pre-engagement and the continuous development of staff and students, that's their main concern. And we know staff and students are not really interested about the flowery language on our documents, but they want to know how are we going to enact, how are we going to make this living documents, and that's very important. So emphasis again on how are we going to give them access to foundational AI understanding? Everybody needs that. Not everybody's a guru. I'm sure there's gurus in this room, but it's not about being a guru. It's about thinking about a student that has the entire school career. They weren't told they're copying. You know, they maybe got an A in history or so, and they learned those history essays off by heart, and then they come to the university, and we expect them to know what plagiarism is. We expect them to know what ethical usage is. So that is definitely a problem. And here was an example of a second-year pharmacy, a pharmacy lecturer for his second-year pharmacy students. He definitely worked on pre-engagement, and he sat with his group. He made them become familiar with the tools. He actually introduced them to the AI tools that they could use. That was also specifically for pharmacy, and I agree with you that some disciplines are saying no usage of AI, depending on the discipline. And he then showed them how to enrich their understanding and assisted them. And that is what he focused on. So that pre-engagement and the responsibility of the lecturer was very important. So on my side, on the center side, we also help drive. It's a continuous awareness, and we continuously share information around AI literacy for academic research and professional and administrative staff as well, and that's very important. So we've even integrated it into our ICT training packages because we give training across campus. And now AI is not standalone, as you know. So we've had to customize our packages now, and AI is integrated into that. And that's very important. Even our colleagues that do the multimedia training, too, you know, AI is impacting all areas of integrating ICTs. And we've embedded AI tools in the training as well. So we share with them around AI software. And then, as you said, Prof. Anay, we do share various tools, but then we also remind them that many of the tools become paid subscriptions. And that is not very sustainable for our institutions. As you know, there's been cuts across. So that's also a problem. How are we going to invest in the future? And then, as I said, it's not only us sharing around AI. So across our university, we have different DVCs and their portfolios, and we work together. And then here was our DVC research. And already we started driving this initiative in 2023, in the end of 2022 into 2023. We have AI colloquia, and then we also have we had a UWC Research Week, and within it AI was embedded, and that's very important. We already have proactive lecturers on campus. It's not just us driving, as I said. Here was a group of lecturers that partnered with industry, and they were thinking about a maturity assessment framework. As you said, Prof. Anay, the rethinking the assessment is becoming very important. But how do we partner with industry to think about how we are going to work with these AI tools? And so, yes, everybody's speaking about ethical considerations and transparencies, but how are we implementing it on the ground? I know some of our sister institutions, even here in the Western Cape, there is not an assignment that does not have a plagiarism detection disclosure attached to it. And those are decisions we can make on a departmental level, but it's important to engage. And there are universities doing that already. So it's very important here, as we share, we also help them about how to use it, but how to cite it as well. And here, for example, again, going on with Jacques Chaber's examples, he then actually did sort of analysis after he had introduced his students to AI. And then he actually assessed them afterwards, and he spoke to them, and then he could see that they had a commendable level of understanding, but they also then understood their responsibility. But it's because of that pre-engagement. And then he could introduce them to clear guidelines and instructions. So it's not just about the assessment as well. Again, I'm harping on, you can create a fantastic assessment, but we cannot take for granted that everybody knows what the AI tools is about, you know. So we also have governance and ethical concerns now around AI, as you stated, Prof. Anay. There are students that have landed up at the proctor's office already. I can't obviously speak about this here, but I'm sure across our institutions, if we are honest, we are having to engage in dispute resolutions where some students are saying, I did not use AI. And the lecturer is then actually saying they can see or may, you know, and these are things that's happening on the ground. And so that is why we cannot just market trends and these fantastic tools, but I think we need to make our students continuously aware around the challenges and risks. So we have developed, as in SEED, we've developed a generic AI awareness and ethical usage module, and we've integrated into our learning management system, Canva. And so we've opened it to staff and students because we felt AI awareness is very important. And in this module, it's packed with issues around AI technologies, referencing, citing, and just usage. But what has also happened is I sat with the team and I said, we can continuously just adding, trends in there, but that is not the issue. Again, I'm asking, how would a student know what is an ethical manner of using it? So I've started with the team, and every week we send out to staff, and we put it via email, and we put it in a blog, and we put it in our WordPress site. We actually then start giving snippets of how to use it. And some of the lecturers have already said thank you. So we would actually tell them, here's the prompt, and we would show them from step 1, from the time you log in, step 2, step 3, and we go on. And then we actually tell them, make use of relevant research articles and lecture content. Yes. Do not copy the AI-generated content. And we show them how to cite. So this is what we've been doing, I could say, on a pedagogical level, not just to give information, but start giving actual exemplars. And not only for text, but also how to use multimedia, you know. And again, here was an example. Please generate an image to help me understand photosynthesis. We said that's an example of an assignment. And we would show the students step by step, this is how you use it, without copying the AI and then citing. And this is the examples. I'm not going to go through all. But as you mentioned, Prof. Anay, it is important for the detection as well. So yes, we're promoting ethical usage, but the detection is still very important. And we don't assume that our students and our staff can use our platforms. And so even though we have training consistently, it's also important we showcase and we send out instructional manuals, or we send out little snippets all the time. Here we had a series again, even though we do training, how to log in, how to access your report, how to interpret. And then some of the students were saying, oh, but I also want to see my AI detection report. And we had to explain to them why it's viewable by the lecturer, what the Turnitin consortium said about that. And that's very important because students want to know. And we know sometimes with these AI detection platforms that around the scores. And you as a lecturer also need to come to the training. You need to know how to interpret these reports. You can't just, say, oh, 30%, you fail my assignment. We know this. We've been using this for years, colleagues. And so too with AI detection. And look at Jacques. He sat with a report with him. Again, it was new students, and he can tell them this is, for example, somebody had a 15% score, and then he sat with the student and he said, but when I look at it closely, that 15% is common sources, you know, it's a common terminology. So it's important for faculty to engage with the students and not always think it's just systems, it's somebody else's responsibility. And yes, it is a lot of work as well. I'm not going to go through this, but just some of the questions and they would ask, like, you know, we saw for the Turnitin, they were unable to detect AI-generated text if it was less than 300 words. And we were so concerned. We were saying, well, what if they're giving tutorial answers and it's short little snippets and they copy. And so we've raised this with the consortium. And these are things that university administrators and leaders have to deal with, you know, because these software platforms are not always accurate, but that is why they assist you with detection. But it's still going to be your responsibility to actually speak to the student. Yeah, Elizabeth, just lastly, there was a dean that came to us and said, Juliet, I have a bit of an issue with my lecturer now. They've given the student note. How should we address it? And again, we are giving advice, Elizabeth, but the faculty needs to deal with it, you know. And we were saying, but if the student said she didn't copy, you're going to have to engage with the student. And there are ways afterwards. I'm sure there's an oral exam you can do. You can ask the students for the versions of the assignments, you know, that they've submitted. And yes, these are difficult things. And then, yeah, that was it. It's continuous development, as Prof. Anay said. It's a moving target. And one last thing, we were speaking to Brita, Dr. Brita Zwada from CHE, and we had developed guidelines. I mean, I said to her, well, we're moving on to our policy framework. And then she said, why would you want a policy as well, Juliet, when you've got the guidelines, you know? So those are discussions we're having with our DVC. And for us, I think now we have the guidelines, and maybe it's important. Prof. Anay, you have a hub. We don't have a special dedicated hub. We have to do this on top of, you know, everything else we do. And maybe with that guidelines, Elizabeth, we can think of adding some use cases, exemplars from various disciplines to the guidelines. So that's from our side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliet. I really like all the strategies that you shared and that you were so open to share snippets from your own experiences, like the screenshot of your email to the lecturer. I know we said we'd do a whirlwind tour, but I think we'll also give you one question. And I think one that's also coming up here. And of course, there were quite a couple around assessment. But something that I think, since you very much, you were showing us that example of advice, Olutoyin had asked, what recourse does a lecturer have when there is a dispute on students using AI in postgrad research?
Well, like I said, Nicola, I don't take that responsibility on my own. So there is a faculty, there's a dean, there's a deputy dean, there's a teaching and learning specialist, and then there's a proctor's office. So when I gave example that advice to the dean of how I think he should approach it, from there, I wasn't called with him to the next phases, because I think there was phases of them, but I did we could give on the level of how to interpret the report, you know, and then we could give on the level of speak to the student, you know, ask for previous versions of your work, you know, and so that's very important. But I think there are many stakeholders involved around the disputes, but it doesn't reside within my office alone, you know. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, it does a lot. Thank you very much. And I'm going to introduce our next speaker quickly before we go on to, I know there's a lot of questions already for our panelists, and I think everyone's doing really exciting things and we're learning a lot here in a short space of time. Our next speaker is, excuse me, is Dr. Gloria Castrillon, who is Senior Director for Teaching Excellence at the University of Johannesburg. So over to you, Gloria.
Thank you so much. I do not know how to share in Zoom because it's been so long since I've used it. So if somebody could assist me.
Green button that says share. Are you seeing
green button that says share?
middle
Right.
of your bottom of
Thank
your
you,
screen?
thank you. Alrighty, let me get to my sharing thing. And let me get to, okay, I'm not sure if,
Yes, it's a PDF.
yeah, I think I've shared the wrong thing. Oh, sorry, we used to use Zoom so much. And of course, since we've gone back to just using Teams, I've just become a Zoom Luddite. But I'll get there. Just give me a second. Alrighty. I do not understand what is going on here. All right. This is ridiculous that I can't find my screen. So I'm not sure what is going on. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation or not?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. All righty. So I am perhaps not as stupid as I think I am. All right. So
we're seeing your notes. So if you just go to display settings at the top.
Display settings.
Swap presenter view and slideshow.
Can you see it now?
Perfect.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay. I shall have to do some practicing in Zoom. Okay, so I looked at the questions that we were asked. I'm the head of a division called the Division for Teaching Excellence, which focuses on how the development of academic staff in terms of all the different areas of teaching and learning specifically. And the institutional processes that kind of governed how we managed the development of the documentation and the policy and so on. And when I say policy, I don't mean a document, was basically that at the end of 2022, or possibly even earlier than that, there was a lot of chatter, and I'm going to call it chatter because it kind of came from everywhere about ChatGPT, and it was particularly kind of focused on ChatGPT at the time. And so the division picked this up, and we started a series of peer-to-peer conversations where academics who were saying, look, there's this thing happening and we need to think about how it's used, etc., would then come into sessions and demonstrate what they were doing to other academics. Their students would come with them sometimes, and it would all run through in this very equitable way, in this very one-on-many, one-to-many. So one of the key people, for example, is a professor in IT, and she was really kind of pushing this that we have to have a way to deal with it. The DVC's domain took the lead, but of course there was right at that time, 2022, 2023, it was on the agendas of the Senate Teaching and Learning Committee, in fact, all faculty teaching and learning committees, and certainly in the research-related domains. And in the research-related domains, I include the librarians who are responsible for assisting the faculties with the various functions in that category. So the key question for us then was, what is or what will be the impact of AI on assessment? And I mean, I'm clearly not, this is not just a UJ issue, but this was really seen as a subordinate question to the broader question of integrity and quality of assessment that had been, that had been necessitated in a way by COVID-19. And so the university was rethinking assessment as a whole, and as part of that rethinking of assessment was really a rethinking of what are the tools and mechanisms that we can use to ensure integrity and quality in assessment. As a result, it was decided by the university not to have a policy. There were several reasons for this, but key among these were that a policy is a slow thing to change in a university. And we didn't know where this generative AI in particular was going. And so it was seen as a little bit too old-fashioned a response to have a policy that then we may have to update and so on. So the decision was actually to integrate AI, generative AI, all the different kinds, into the various policies in which it was relevant. So, for example, in the teaching and learning policies, assessment included, into the codes of conduct for research, codes of conduct for the different domains, as well as the policies on academic misconduct, which at UJ is one policy for students and staff. So it and researchers and PDRFs and anybody that works in any capacity for which they are paid by UJ. So everybody, all of us, are all included in that academic misconduct policy, which is a formal policy of the university. So the involvement of academic staff, students, and admin staff was really a kind of groundswell. It came up from the academic staff, it came up from faculties, and certainly at the kind of coalface, it came up from the students. So what we've done is to focus on how to continuously keep people involved in this. And very much the key successful elements of this have been in the presentations and open discussions that we have. And in addition, we provide training on this in dedicated sessions for NGAPs, assistant lecturers, on the Future Professors program, in the academic advanced accelerated academic mentorship program. All of these domains will bring AI in as it is relevant. We have a MOOC, a free SLP, which is offered online to students, staff, and the public. And students can choose to do the SLP for as part of their suite of kind of credentialing that they get of various different training formats that they've been offered. We also have a formal SLP on ethics for AI use in large language models, which is facilitated by Professor Catherine Buerter, who's in the Department of Philosophy. And some of our staff have attended that. The postgraduate school does a lot of training on this and a lot of integrity, research integrity, a lot of that kind of support in the supervision PG-DIP, in the PG-DIP on teaching and learning, higher education, that is integrated into the various elements of of work that are happening. The library has a dedicated senior staff member who is responsible for AI at the university in the library. So in terms of what tools can you use to make research, to capacitate researchers, to capacitate students. And there's been a lot of traffic in terms of library support. They have online videos, etc., etc. And then, of course, we have our Center for Academic Technologies, otherwise known as CAT. And CAT offers a lot of student training. So students get training on plagiarism avoidance from the library. They can also get it from CAT. It's available in Moodle. It's kind of endemic in the university. So what the decision was to to have 3 documents. At the one document is called a practice note in AI. And these were published at the beginning of 2024, and they need to be updated already. So, it just to make sure that we are keeping our heads where they need to be. So we have a practice note, which is general, and then we have guidelines for staff and guidelines for students. The fundamental premise was that we are not going to take the point of view where we're on a detection drive. And the way that UJ did this was to say, how do we teach students to use artificial intelligence in an appropriate paradigm? So a lot of assessments at UJ say require the students to either write prompts or obtain through AI. For example, in computer science, the students get code and then they critique that code. So a lot of the training, a lot of the assessments that they do use AI generated responses from various sources. And then the assessment is actually to assess the validity of the result, and then to draft and redraft. There are departments where students can use or are required to use AI to generate, for example, a problem statement. And then that problem statement is refined either through reading and so on. And so they'll submit multiple versions, multiple drafts. But certainly the emphasis for us with staff and students is on the kind of critical use, on understanding the strengths, and certainly being able to use those, but at the same time being mindful and very aware of the ways in which it can actually inhibit your learning, your thinking, and what you produce. So and I love the fact that a lot of the lecturers start their lectures with these really amusing and completely inaccurate responses from AI as a demonstration. Of course, the more we use it, the more it learns, and so there's all of those considerations as well. So the guidelines are used in a number of different ways, but I think more importantly are the kinds of things that we do at UJ that are integrated into our everyday work. So, for example, we have an annual teaching innovation fund, which offers financial support for an innovation in teaching, either in kind of the approach, the pedagogy, or in the ways in which it's actually articulated at, let's say, the level of course materials or training materials, or whatever you want to call it. And in this award, we have seen evidence of extraordinary innovations using AI in the classroom, using AI as a way to develop assessments, for example, and those things are shared then in these peer-to-peer, what we call peer-to-peer sessions, where the academics speak to each other and to us about how I've done this, how did I integrate this into my module, how did I integrate this into a topic or assessment or whatever the case may be. The student side of things, I'm much less, I own. I did not research this as much as I should have, my apologies. But students are represented and are active in all committees. I mean, I sit on Senate Teaching and Learning, and the students are there, they are listening, they are asking questions, they're engaging, and that's a positive. Of course, CAT interfaces with students directly, and they're available almost 24/7, but they're available all the time. They give assistance and guidance, etc. And student interns were part of the team that put together the booklets. So they gave us input. They work in CAT. So they'll be used again this year to update these as well. Because, I mean, I don't want to call myself old, but I'm definitely not young. So, in other words, we've adopted a kind of staff awareness approach and also student awareness approach. And we try to integrate it into our training. We try to integrate it into, if there's a course on assessment, we talk about AI in assessment as part of it. If we're talking about course design, we include considerations of AI in there. When we're doing program reviews, we ask academics to consider how do they integrate AI into the program so that the students have the skills, going into the future. And very much all our capacity building will have an AI element to it. Now, is it working? I think at the high level, it is working in the sense that it's my impression, and it might just be because I'm interacting with people who come into the space with an interest already, but it seems to me that it's working. We were given the numbers recently on the number of students who've done the AI short course, and I can't remember what the number is, but it was really quite remarkable, actually. It's integrated into a lot of the things that we do. So, measuring impact, I don't really know. It does seem to be working. There's a lot of feedback coming through, for example, in the various ways. And recently, all the feedback on the disciplinary hearings that we had, interestingly, AI didn't come up as a particularly, kind of highlighted, or plagiarism or whatever, didn't come up as a particularly highlighted issue. We have two modules at UJ that I think are also relevant. The one module is for all entering first year students and others, let's say, who don't know the university. That module is to set the context for the students, to tell them what there is that they can use, what resources there are for them, how they can make use of them. And in there's an aspect of AI and, all kinds of academic ethics, integrity, and so on. And we similarly have a module for exiting students, which will be rolled out, as far as I know, in the second semester, where there's a whole lot of things in there about assisting students who are about to graduate and possibly go into work, drawing up a CV, and the kinds of AI and ethical issues that are attendant in there as well. And so I think my impression is, on the whole, it is working. However, we cannot be naive to the challenges. So one of the things about the guides and the practice notes is that I would love them to be dynamic, to be an app, to be something that a student could just, check on the phone. Could I do this? How do I do that? What's this? What's that? And the same for the lecturer. More and more, you have the expectation that something is not a document, that and of course we need to cater for everybody, but so I'm not saying the documents would be done away with, but it seems to me that there's a place for something that's a little bit more dynamic. Secondly, AI is more than cheating, and we really have tried at UJ to move out of that paradigm of, the students using AI, then they're automatically cheating. So that's a big thing. That's a big part of the messaging. Thirdly, many staff are reluctant to engage. I mean, there are staff who just throw up their hands and say, well, I'm not going to use AI. And then you say, but yes, but your students are. So, you have to kind of know what you're doing. You have to know. You cannot hide away from it. And I mean, some departments have reverted to, making students write everything in front of them. All assessments are done in class. And that's all very well, but how are you going to do that with a big with a very big class. It's impossible. So I think we also need, as I'm talking about a generational, and it's not an age thing, by the way. Not everybody reluctant to use AI or engage with AI is an older person like myself. Many people are young people, young academics, just like, they don't want it, they don't like it. Some of them even battle with Moodle. So, we've got a whole continuum, I would say. The other challenge, of course, is the speed of evolution. And I think that is something that I really grapple with, because it feels like I've got a handle on one thing and then something else, is squeezing out the other side. And of course, it's not what I am 100% dedicated to, so that makes sense. But then the same is true for every academic and every administrator and every support staff person. So how do we keep up as an institution with what's happening? And then there are questions of oversight and risk. And I don't know that we've engaged enough with those just as a sector, never mind as a university. What do I mean by oversight and risk? For example, you're submitting a new program to the CHE. In the old days, you could take a bit of that program application and see whether the academic has plagiarized a website or something. It's not that easy now. So we have to now, like in all areas of work, say, what is AI doing, and what are the risks associated with that, and how are we mitigating those risks? How much of them can we anticipate, and how much of them are we really kind of reacting to rather than proactively seeking to say, look, these are the parameters, and everybody needs to understand the parameters. So yeah, these are, vexed questions, and certainly I don't have the answers. I'm not sure that any one person does. So it's been very, very nice to be invited to this, and, to offer the UJ perspective. And I'll say again, I'm not entirely sure that, that I have covered everything, but certainly from where I sit in my domain, this is my impression of what the UJ experience has been. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gloria. That was so insightful. And I must say, just going through the chat and the questions, people, we could chat about this the whole day.
Yeah.
So much here. And I'm going to start maybe just to kind of get us going. And because you mentioned it, and they mentioned it, I think Juliet also did. You said, how do we keep up? And they said there's a sense of people feeling very overwhelmed,
Yes.
and some lecturers not even wanting to engage. And if you've got any tips around that, or maybe in the chat, there's colleagues, maybe you've done something, is there a chance perhaps brainstorm together? How can we make that overwhelm a bit smaller?
Yeah. I think one of the ways that we've done it that does succeed is in, I hesitate to say this because I don't want it to sound in any way like I'm diminishing, but what we've done is to try and get this peer sense of, you learn from the person that you work with. So, so that it's not an expert coming in and telling you. We have workshops where, people share their experiences, and then how to. So if you want to do this, how to do it. And then I know that there are academics who've assisted other academics in integrating it. So I think part of the thing is the human thing. It's really just to make it, nobody wants to feel stupid, right? So I think AI makes us feel stupid. So we try to just neutralize that if we can. It's not always possible, but if and where we can.
Thank you, Gloria. I know, Janet, you've had your hand up for a while. I think you've got a burning question. Does it mean you'd like to take the mic? Janet, Bruce, Brand?
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Thanks.
I just wanted to, it's a general I think Nicola's provided much the same answers I have here, but there seems to be a focus still with too many people on AI detection. And as much as Turnitin gives us a similarity index, where AI, I've attended a number of webinars, etc., even internationally, and the consensus among the experts is you cannot rely on the detection tools. So I think you have to take a step back and de-emphasize that. And that's why things have to change. So and I like exactly what you've been doing at UJ, giving them AI output and critiquing it. You cannot accurately rely on those tools. They would not stand up, and I've spoken to legal experts here, they will not stand up legally. So I think some of the people talking about that, they need to de-emphasize that. That was just what I was going to say, and rather focus on how do we cope and equip our students with the skills necessary to face this new technology. It's here to stay. They will use it. They might just use it in a more sophisticated fashion and be better able to take output and put it into Quillbot and reword it and make it more human-like text. I mean, we all know we've put through our own some of our own journal articles, which we knew were human written before this whole trend, and we found that it says that that's been written by AI. We cannot trust those tools. So I just want to say we need to de-emphasize that.
If I may just respond, one of the things that we do, that we recommend, is that lecturers obtain a stress-free, neutral writing sample from students, particularly in the writing-heavy disciplines, if that makes sense. So if you get students to write you a piece and get a sense of that style, the problem, of course, again, is the very big classes. So, yes, we have to find a balance, but I agree completely. I think we're wasting our time spending too much time on detection. Yeah, that's my opinion.
And our other panelists, I know Anna had to leave us, but Juliet's still here. Juliet, would you like to add something?
Well, I think I covered mine in the presentation because it's definitely not focusing on detection. I don't think we can just throw out all the tools now, It's just some deterrent, and I even showed examples where it's not working, but it's not easy. And I think all of us some even want it to go away, as you said. I had a lecturer just last week, actually a deputy dean, and she said, I don't want the students to use it. But I'm not telling them to use it. It's your assessment, it's your design. And I know there are lecturers, even in our system, it says clearly there when they set up the assessment. Please do not use AI. We will not tolerate any use of AI. So they have to determine that, And then there was another lecturer, for example, a history lecturer, and it was another way of doing it. She actually gave the topic slavery, enlightenment, and then she gives 2 articles that the students must focus on critically, and then she gave a piece out of AI, ChatGPT, and she said, look at ChatGPT's view, look at the stance, now critically compare it to what I've given you. Do not focus on ChatGPT, but already there she showed them she can also use AI. They're going to come with that stance. But actually that stance was a very European stance, bringing enlightenment to this world. And she wanted them to critically analyze that in comparison to the 2 articles she gave them. So I think definitely, as Gloria was saying, the examples of how we're using it, and it's not going to go away. We are going to continuously having to show our practices. And I think some academics, Gloria, are afraid, like you say, we don't want to, So it's easy for them just to come to us and tell me, oh, I don't want to use this. It's almost like I'm promoting it. But yeah, we have to promote it. We have to go along with it. At the same time, we are concerned. We then implement the AI detection tools as well, Gloria. Because remember, before AI, there's other detection. And Turnitin was quite good at somehow detecting some of the, students that were really copying. And Gloria, even when you submit a thesis now, some of the
Yeah.
examiners, they want the Turnitin report. So yes, we have these systems. I don't think we can throw out everything, Nicola. It's the balance. It's just the approach, yeah.
If I could just add to the conversation, one of the things that UJ is doing is using AI as a teaching tool. So, for example, in online assessments, there'll be an AI, no two students will get the same assessment for a start. And then there's an AI aspect which will say, the student isn't doing as well in this bit of knowledge, and so we'll generate more questions, not generate, we'll draw in from an item bank. So it's combining the old-fashioned item bank with a little bit of AI in terms of, where does the student need to focus before that student can move on to another area. And I think that actually, if we were to look at that, more positively. So we teach academics how to use AI to, for example, get a sense of what the topics could be in X conversation, in X subject, and then to critically engage with that, because I think part of the fear is that somehow we are being cheated, and I think if we say that intelligently we use it as a tool, it is in effect no different to a calculator. And I know that it can learn and all of that stuff, but I always use myself as an example. In matric, in mathematics, I did not know trigonometry, not at all. Not at all. Geometry, I was absolutely fine with. And I thought, because, I was a matric, I thought it's because I can't use a calculator. So the next year I was like, everybody's so lucky because they get to use a calculator. We just still had to use logbooks. Listen, if I had AI now, it wouldn't help me with trigonometry. So, and I think that's what we keep saying to the academics. You've got to think about the way you are teaching, the way you design learning activities, the way you design assessment activities. You've got to think about everything that you're doing, kind of, what's the word? It must all cohere, because if you are asking a question that, and then you're just getting an answer from, I don't know, whatever, ChatGPT or whatever, you need to be a little bit creative and you need to challenge yourself. And I think, sadly, our academics are overworked across the sector. So I think one of the challenges is having enough time to develop your own skill and your own confidence, because it requires a lot of confidence, and it also requires an institution that is happy to support you if it fails. Because if it doesn't work, then what? If you make a mistake, then what? You have to be able to, there has to be some flexibility in the university system, which, let's face it, is not known for flexibility as a rule, so that we can allow for mistakes to happen, because those are learning events. I'm going to keep quiet now. Thank you.
Could I just add to what I said before? I've tried to move to my laptop, my reception I was battling with. But just to say that, I think Nicholas made this point that we need to distinguish between like what is meant by plagiarism. Using AI itself does not constitute plagiarism from a legal perspective. Because plagiarism involves it's copying somebody else's work, okay? And so what you have to be careful of when you use AI is that you are not inadvertently copying the ideas or thoughts of somebody else. So you have to be careful that you therefore don't commit plagiarism. So we can still rely on a Turnitin tool for similarity index. But as I said, we have to recognize that AI in itself is not a human. And so from a legal perspective, this is a very interesting area. And so I think we need to, even unfortunately, I mean, I've attended a lot of these things, the Grammarly workshops, etc. There is hope for the future that maybe, people have to work within a document, but all the time there are going to be ways of cheating that. Like they can be working on their phone and getting AI to do something, and they're just sitting typing it in, on their other device. So I think we've just got to de-emphasize. We have to change the way we do things. As scary and terrifying as that is, I was sent to this conference in New York to say, come back with the best AI detection tool, and every single expert said the same thing. You cannot rely on that, and you have to change your approach, therefore.
Thank you, Janet. Juliet, I know you've also been collating some questions. I think I'm going to let you facilitate for a while, if you want to. Otherwise, I've got some others here, but I don't want to.
No, I think it was the same trend about people asking there are AI platforms, detection platforms that have different percentages, and how are we going to deal with this? So I think I hear the voices. The main concern is about this detection, and I think we've addressed that some. But Farid is here in our team as well, and I want him to say something because we were exploring with Turnitin and copy leaks, and we had to discern. But at the same time, as leaders in the organization, you need to keep up with trends. You need to also keep up with the systems. You need to communicate with vendors, etc. Then at the other side, you have the pedagogical, concerns. So I just wanted Farid maybe to share, because somebody was asking, how are we dealing with this different percentages? And I think Gloria and others have already alluded to that. If that's okay. Is that fine? Farid, are you here?
Yes, we are all good. And I think there was just a, fascinating a question by Mopeli. And he said, how do we ensure, oh, no, it was Thusmai, sorry, does in the South African context, not using or being given the opportunity to use AI tools, does it not disadvantage our students, since many of them are using it for translation purposes and for editing purposes because of the language barriers? So what is your take on that, Gloria and Juliet? How are colleagues at your institution thinking about that specifically?
We're training students to use the AI to help them grammatically. So it's not widespread, but there are pockets where students are being told, if you've written this, pop it into ChatGPT, ask it what is wrong with it. So that's the critical question, is what's wrong with the way this is written? And then how do I fix it? Not just, fix it for me. So there are, and I'm not sure, I can't remember where it's being done specifically, but it might be a writing center problem. But I think generally, so I have a real kind of, my brain goes numb when I think about this, because I used to be an English lecturer and an English teacher, right? And I hear a lot of lecturers saying students don't know how to write. And I often think, well, okay, but are we teaching them to write? So when I was at university, you get an essay question and you have to write the answer. And certainly my undergraduate experience, it was pretty much like, I don't know, you did well or you didn't do well, and kind of like you muddled through. And sometimes a lecturer would say, pay more attention to the introduction, and you'd go, yes, boss. And the next time you'd pay more. But it was just this kind of vague thing. So I think what I'm saying is we really all need to understand more about how we teach, what we teach, and why we teach it in that particular way. And then the importance of AI and the ways in which we would use it or not use it would become clearer. We would be better equipped, I think, to handle that. So yeah, I personally think Turnitin is a waste of time. I think it's funny that you can, and I know already in 20, I think Quibus will remember, in 20, must have been 16 or 17, students had a patch that they put in, and it then says your Turnitin count is 4%, and it's actually 44% or 64%. That was then. That was then. So I don't even see the value of that, frankly. That's me, sorry.
Juliet, would you like to add?
I think it's going to entail a lot of thinking across stakeholders. As I said, it's not just our center, but for example, we offer a digital academic literacy program. It's a large scale program, and Fundeli is here as well. So we don't only equip students around the LMS, but we still think about the students. I mean, they come from diverse backgrounds, and some dire conditions. And there are still students that don't even know how to use a computer. So we actually do basic literacy training as well still. And just this semester, Nicola, we've had over 3,000 students still engaged in it, and people still think, oh, it's the 21st century, who can't use, but so we drive that a lot. And within that program now, so like I said at the start of my presentation, I think it's what we do to rethink what we offer, and then to integrate AI awareness and the usage. And for me, again, the way I harped on, don't just tell me to use it ethically, show me. So I'm going to continuously create little examples with steps, to show a student. Because like Gloria said, you can use it effectively. So we could then show a student, this is how, if you had to analyze a poem, we know Turnitin, AI knows how to analyze that poem. They're going to give you a whole, a huge whole proposal, everything. AI will give it to you. But then we need to show the student, we found this. AI, analyze this poem. But we want you now, as I said with the history, it's there, it's available. What is your view on it? Don't go and copy it, but think about how you're going to analyze the poem using your lectures, using your articles, etc. I think we just continuously have to do it. And I cannot do that on my own. Each department, and we have a writing center as well, So I don't know if they're here, but people are not going to be able to walk away from this and say, it's Juliet's responsibility. I think all our units and all the gurus in the universities, they're going to have to play their part. And it's not easy. So I might not have all the answers, but I think that's where we at. I don't want to say we've done nothing. As you can see, we've done we've made great strides, but there's still so much. And it's a moving target, by discussion with Brita as well, So we can continuously create policies, more guidelines, but I think everybody's asking, how do I deal with a student that uses it? And they are using it, and some of them are learning to use it effectively. So we need to embrace, Yeah.
Thank you. And I think I read about a report from the Online Learning Consortium in there, or I can share the link to it, that 53% of students, okay, bear in mind it's mainly US setting, but they said when told not to use it or their institutions didn't allow it, they still used it. And I think as much as if we say no, and lecturers can have wonderful outlines and AI statements and explain how they believe AI is not going to be beneficial for the students' learning. But I think they're always going to want to use it for different reasons. Yeah, and then just for, I mean, there's been a lot of also discussion about assessment, and I think you both shared a lot about what you're doing with staff and assessment in particular. And there was a question about, there will always be ways around misuse of AI in assessments. We were talking about Grammarly in the chat, and Grammarly's got this new tool called authorship that apparently is going to be available in Word, but at the moment it's only for Google Docs, and that it means, students writing essays has to happen completely online, which disadvantages some of our students, because many of them might be writing an essay in a space where they don't have internet access. But perhaps what's come up in AI, using AI or misuse of AI is not necessarily the same as cheating. It's often put in the same category. And we've talked about that a bit. I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that, Juliet or Gloria. The AI doesn't.
I think I've addressed that. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think that's very much the approach that is adopted. I mean, for example, so I think, the one surefire way to tell a teenager to do something is to tell them not to do it. And number one. Number two, as I put in the chat, students have been cheating for centuries. I mean, it's not even like, there are students who will and there are students who won't. And whether it's AI or, scribbling something on your underwear, which you're going to go and read when you're in the bathroom, it might happen. But I agree that using AI is not, there's a category of AI use that might be cheating, but then the category is cheating. It's not AI. Does that make sense? So if you're saying, so we ask students, have you used AI? And if yes, how have you used it? Did it help you? And so we ask them to be reflexive about what they do, in what they use AI for, and whether they found it a help or a hindrance. And I think having moved to continuous assessment in so many modules has really helped, because that assessment process is much more iterative than your standard formative, summative event. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I think in asking students to comment on whether they've used AI or not, did they find it helpful or not, then it comes and it is commented on either by an academic or a tutor or a whatever, and then it goes back and then they rework it again. They get that sense of ownership. And I think Laura said up above that it's about developing an academic voice, and that's very much the messaging that we are trying to give our students, is that you are doing yourself no favors if you are not using it properly as a tool. You are literally digging a hole for you to fall in, because it cannot replace so many things. So we have to try and find ways to use it ethically, with integrity, whatever. So I mean, yeah, it's a challenge beyond my head, beyond my brain, but we're trying. What can I say? We're trying.
And maybe just to comment on what Laura said, I think it's exactly what I said. So for us to continuously give exemplars, Nicola, it's the only way, but across disciplines, and not just sort of depend on one person or a team, to give the exemplars. So if we have, let's say that we have that open course now, it's a repository of trends and exemplars. So I'm reaching out to others as well. You could also give them exemplars, within your disciplines. So then that becomes a bank of exemplars, it's a repository for the, although we're sharing it on different platforms, but it would be great if the lecturers then also start seeing these repositories. They shouldn't be afraid, because there are going to be challenges, So place it in there, what worked and what didn't work. And I think we just need to continuously encourage all our staff. But as you said, Nicola, also, or somebody said, are we there to assist them when they make that mistake? I think people are afraid, what's going to happen if I don't know how to use the tools? I don't even know what students are using. So the easiest way is to say, please do not use it. But what they fail to realize, or they do know it, that the students are using it all the time to get ideas. You can get a structure from AI, like I said, you can be doing English, history, whatever, whichever discipline. AI would give you a design. AI even gives you interesting articles, extra reading resources now. So we just need to continuously show them how to use it without plagiarizing. And that's, for me, is the most important. It's our journey now with the students. And yes, we can continue, Nicola. We need to speak to each other on fora like this, invite each other, get more speakers and speak about our exemplars. But when we go back to our spaces, what are we doing there, And most people, I suppose it would be easy just to say, no, that's their business. They must help the people with AI. It's coming to them, and they cannot walk away with it. So I think our lecturers, and our professional staff and all the others, they mustn't just be ready to come to spaces where they can engage in and we can chat, and we can share. But when they get back to the classroom, to actually implement and show the students and actually do it as well. And that, I think, Nicola, is a challenge now.
Yeah, and I like your you mentioned exemplars, lecturers learning from peers. And I think, a space like this, we've been sharing policies, guidelines, and there's lots of these in the digital education open bibliography that I'm going to pop a link to again. And if you've got a resource at your institution, please feel free to contact either myself or Laura Chernovich to add it to that open bibliography. It is just a Google spreadsheet. It's nothing fancy, but a very, very useful source of curated materials that we really would like to build up. And maybe we need to create another column there, exemplars of AI use or something, or discipline. Maybe we can organize it by discipline or something. I like that. I remember back, who was it? There was I think it was 101 uses of AI for teaching and learning. There's a set of slides like that from, where are they based? But yeah, outside of South Africa. But we would like, I think, our own local exemplars as well. Yeah, how about Elizabeth, would you like to add or take us back to any of the questions?
Yes, Nicola, I just want to go back to one comment that was mentioned by Prof. Duramjar from the University of the Western Cape, but he also, I think, serves as a teaching and learning specialist in one of the international universities. Their questions was, in the South African context, I also feel one must critically consider whether an outright prohibition of a use of an AI might constitute a form of a digital oppression, particular for students who face significant linguistic barriers. And I think this touches on what also Gloria spoke about. So I want to say this before we go on to our question and answer, to say AI literacies. And I think this is also something that Janet spoke about in terms of raising awareness and demystifying this. AI literacy should no longer become an option. It should be something that is strategic, it's considered, it's embedded in curriculum, in teaching and learning, in practice, in process, in everything, because it's a foundational skill that also help us to use these tools, the new technologies, ethically, but also to help us to make informed decisions around them as well. But mostly, especially in the teaching and learning side, it will help with academic integrity if they are used properly. So institutions must teach AI literacy or treat AI literacy the same way as we treat digital literacy as well as academic writing as the key things to help our students learn better. We need to embed that into everything that we do. We need to have deliberate, structured AI literacy workshops or training or skills development embedded not only for students but also for staff. Because if you only do it for one group of people, you are leaving the others behind. And if we're not doing this, we risk the challenges that were raised in terms of the digital divide, the digital skills divide in terms of who knows what. So then it means also we need to put more resources into this, because then if we don't, then those who have the resources will always perform better than the others. So we need to shorten the digital divide around this. So we should be looking at AI as a tool, a disruptive tool, similar to Gloria said it, calculators. They were a disruptive tool that we were told we should not be using tool in the assessment like your calculator. If you were doing maths, they wanted us to do maths without the calculator. Now, maths, we're using calculator because during the guidelines on assessment, it includes the use of tool. There are practices and processes put in place for people to use those tools in the classroom during assessment. So we need to embed this thing within the processes that we are embarking on. So we need to create guidelines and policies to help move us into using these new technologies and not be afraid of them. We need to embed them in our assessments, in our practice, in our processes. We should not be eliminating them because they are here to stay. We need to know how to work with them. We need to structure them responsibly in the way we do things. And I think I need to also leave us with some of these questions, especially when we go into the discussion, to say we need to reflect in terms of our own current assessment policies. Are we also embedding those AI tools within them? I like the example that UJ gave in terms of how they're using AI within the assessment, where it also looks at generating the questions based on the level of understanding of a student, which is something that we never did before because we always do blanket approaches in terms of how we assess the students. Now we give students the personalized assessments as well because of the AI tools that enables those capabilities. Have we also, maybe we need to also ask ourselves, have we defined what counts as an independent work around AI assisted environment? Or are we punitive in terms of how we do things? Are we also equipping our staff and students to make use of these tools effectively without being punitive in a manner as well? So those are the comments, and also from looking at the comments that everyone has posted and the questions. And I think this session has been a fruitful session. And yeah, that is my input for now. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I think Jackie, and I also want to acknowledge, Hanley shared something great that the University of Stellenbosch is doing. It's a resource. She's put the link in the chat, and it's cool things, what cool things academics do. Do you want to tell us a little bit more, and maybe just about the process of how you collect those? Because if people are wanting to collect exemplars, maybe they can, maybe you're an exemplar for us.
Hi, Nicola. Thank you for the opportunity. Didn't expect this. We in our workshops and discussions quite often academics would share things they do. We had the final workshop in our assessment learning and AI short course today, and again I came across so many amazing things they do. So we normally ask their permission, and then we write a first draft with the help of AI, and we send it to them just to check that it is okay, and then collate it. This is quite old. We will soon be working on a new version. But it includes links to some podcasts. So that's one of the other spaces where we come across some of these. We have a podcast series where we sometimes chat to academics not only about AI, about assessment more generally, but AI features more. It's impossible now to have an assessment conversation without AI creeping in, isn't it? So yeah, this is a very small first step, a beginning, but we found that it is really helpful in line maybe with what Juliet said earlier. It's really helpful for academics to see what other people are doing, just examples of things that could be done.
Thank you, Hanali. And talking about examples of what could be done, Jacqueline from UJ shared an ebook. And there's also, I know, okay, there's another resource. I'm not sure if that goes with that one. And it's got over 50 assessment ideas. You've told us about it in the chat, but maybe Jackie, you can explain it a little bit better.
Thank you very much, Nicola. And thank you for all the presenters. It's really been quite engaging discussion. I want to share the tool that is shared. I think Gerrit Wissing also shared it. It's a very, very useful AI assessment instrument that you could use to determine, especially if you're in the design of your activities or in evaluating or student, you can guide them in how they should approach a task. But that specific instrument was also presented at UNESCO's Digital Learning Week last year. So it has a real, it's really quite credible. It was developed, I think, from an Australian, from that context, but it is really useful. If you click on the link that I think Gerrit shared as well, it takes you to the blog, and there's a host of other resources that is actually shared on the blog. But what is also helpful is they share all of the instruments that were used in developing this AI assessment instrument. And they refer to some other models as well, like the AI Creative Framework Indicator, which I thought was also quite interesting. So there are a host of different instruments and models that have been developed. But with the book, I found the book very, very helpful because it also shared examples from the different levels of AI use. If you're designing an activity that have got low AI use, then these are some examples. So it's very relatable. If I maybe also just link onto one of the comments that I had, Nicola, what I found really, really helpful is that it broadened the conversation around SOPL. You know, the scholarship of teaching and learning. It all made us, interrogate our own practices. But I think what is missing at the moment is people are not doing research on their own practices. They're not sharing and openly disseminating that to a wider platform. We find the conversations happening between colleagues, but it's not critical engagement. So I think what we need to do is also just move one step further and to study from a scholarly perspective our own practice, and then to report on that and to open it to a wider audience. I see that happening with all the different publications that are now coming on, and maybe I can give a little plug to Sierra, the special interest group. There's also a publication, call for publications that are coming up. I don't know if you want to share that as well, maybe Nicola. I know you're also aware of that link. So maybe just chuck that in the chat as well. Thanks.
Yeah,
Nicola.
Yes, sure, Michael, go for it. But Jackie, just pop that in the chat for us. And even if you send it to me, we can always share it with the colleagues who joined today. I think that'll be great.
Yes, Nicola, I'm Michael van Wyk from UNISA.
Hi.
So I received this invite because my interest is in AI ethics. But through my research for the last 3.5 years, I developed the typology of prompt literacy. Now, to understand prompting is a very important 21st century skill. So what I realized with my master's and my undergraduate, the students are using these hype of ChatGPT. They jump on this bandwagon and they start. And I found out through my research that they use it wrongly. They don't have the skill how to write an effective prompt. And I use the prompt framework of CORE. Now, CORE stands for context, output, role, and example. So if you're writing your prompt wrongly, you will get wrong information. So rather me that write the prompt and give my students the prompt that was generated by AI or Copilot or Jenny or Quillbot. So now I teach my students to reflect on the prompt generated by the learning manage the large language module like I Copilot or ChatGPT. So I increased then what Dr. Boy have indicated. It was music to my ears. I developed critical AI literacy and the typologies of prompt literacy. Now I've developed the eight prompt literacies. Very important from
It
descriptive
sounds
to
fascinating.
comprehensive. So I want to share that with colleagues if they can connect with me. Um, I'm I'm passionate about research, but prompting for me is the most important skill after reading. If you cannot read, you cannot prompt, and that is the 21st century. Otherwise, you will leave your students behind, or you will leave academics behind. So I developed that now in a short learning program.
Okay,
So I
great.
want to
So
teach
have you
that
got a
for
short
free.
resource? Have you got a short resource that you can share based on your work?
I can share my research, but I cannot share that document. But I can train people in that document because I have the skill, because I retired this year at UNISA. I have done a lot of research. So I can help academics how to write effective prompts and authentic assessments, specifically assessment for our students and even for academics. And I also train my students, my undergrad students to write prompts so that I can reflect on what is that prompt that was generated. So then I get the level of the type of critical thinking my students now at that particular level. So I want to share it here at this platform. And
Okay.
what we now have compelled our students to do
Sorry,
the
Michael,
academic
I think
integrity course.
you
Thank
can
you.
do a whole talk on your own at some point. We will invite you. But for now, I think if you have a short resource to share with us or something for that open bibliography, maybe a case study, it doesn't have to be a very detailed thing. If you look at like Haneli, for example, those are very short little examples. But if you want to share an exemplar, it doesn't have to be a big, not a whole thesis, 1 to 2 pages of a little case of how you would approach it. Maybe you've got a one-pager framework. Sometimes, the shortest things are the most useful, something that someone can take in another environment and try it out. So please do share something with us. I've also put my email address there with the link to the open bibliography where we are curating a range of resources. Yeah, but thanks so much. And I see, wow, colleagues are just sharing. I love this. And thank you everyone for being so generous. But mainly at this point, I want to say a big thank you to our panelists, Anne, Juliet, and Gloria, for making time to chat with us today. I know there are still questions and people are still sharing. And Laura, you mentioned that the digital education community of practice want to start a newsletter. I know there was someone who asked initially how I can join this community of practice. I think it was Celeste. So Laura, could you tell us more? Are people just automatically by attending this event, are people now members? You want to tell us a bit more?
Nicola, I can come in there. I don't know if Laura is on the call. Hi, colleagues. I'm Janet from USAF. So look, the COP is essentially for public universities, and we will put you on the mailing list for all of our activities and webinars and so on. We do kind of have a central core, small committee, or what can we call it, a hub of which Nicola forms part and a number of the other colleagues form part. It's about 15 people, so that's a core group. But what we will do is everybody that's on this meeting today, we can include in our mailing list to keep you informed about any other interesting events that you may wish to attend. Does that answer it, Laura, Nicola?
All good. Thank you very much. And I see Anne is back, and I think this is an opportunity we can also get him to perhaps just say something about um, the AI South Africa group, and how people can get involved there. I made a very rough
Yeah,
Google.
I see you are frowning. It's a really informal circle that we've started, the AI circle in South Africa for higher education. And we do not want to formalize it too much, but we need a place or forum just to share what's going on at different universities. And we don't want the management there or the people who feel they must be there. It's the conversation about which tools are you using, which ones should we rather investigate, and what are the prices for those, what are the benefits, what are the new things to consider, what's happening. So it's open, of course, open circle, and a lot of people already emailed me, about 10. So you can just email me and I'll add them to the list. It will be good if we have better representation on the AI circle as well. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, Anne. It sounds very fascinating. Like, it's lovely how, you know, it's not just people sharing their expertise in sessions like this, but the people who attending also have and are willing to share expertise and resources. So really thank you, everybody. Even I don't feel like, it's that goes back to what you were saying. How do we keep up and feeling overwhelmed? And perhaps one of the strategies is curating things as part of a community. What are the good things, useful things, so that we don't feel like we are, what was the word you used? There was something, we constantly feel like there's this, people feel overwhelmed. There's just too much out there. This is a way we can, think more strategically together and curate some valuable and useful resources. Elizabeth, there's something you want to comment you want to take us back to before we leave, or anything you'd like to add?
Um, no, I think you've covered everything, and I really enjoyed today's session because I think most of us we've learned, and especially with the resources that everyone has shared. Let's continue to build on this. I know that Nicola has shared also the link where we can also share the resources that we are building in our own institution, the books that we have. You can share them as resources that we can circulate and help each other learn. And I really appreciate the spirit of sharing. And yeah, let's continue building the global south, as Fatima has put it there, in terms of this work as well, and build things for the global south and Africa that works for us. Because I think that even when we talk about this AI and the models that are generated, they are generated on information and the language used in the global north and so on. So we have a lot to give. And thank you very much, Nicola. Back to you.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thank you to everybody for joining us today. And we know how, 2 hours out of your time, we mentioned what overworked academics, busy academics, we know you're all busy, so we appreciate your engaged participation today, and we look forward to our next conversation. And Janet, anything else?
Nothing from my side, Nicola. Just a huge thank you to all of you for planning, hosting, leading the discussions. It's been most useful, and the recording will be available on the USEF channel. And yes, hopefully you've made a couple of new connections and important insights that you can share with your colleagues at your own institution. And thank you so much, colleagues. It's been great. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Sorry, Janet,
Thanks.
quick question.
Thank you.
There's
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sorry,
Yes.
Janet. Someone asked about the resources shared in the chat because there were lots of links. Is there a way we can share the chat with the people who signed up for the webinar?
I'm going to look into it. I'm going to try my best. There were a lot of interesting resources, so I think I will be able to pull a report off Zoom on the chat.
Okay. Great. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thanks, Nicola.
Thank you, Janet.
Oh,
Thank you,
Laura, you are
Nicola.
online. Are
Bye.
you from
I
Germany?
managed it. And in fact,
Fantastic.
I'm sending you an email because we clearly need some kind of a newsletter.
Okay.
And to get the list of all the people who have registered. And I think we should make it an opt-out thing. So we can send them all a thing and say, if you don't want to be on this list, let us know, because I think 99.9% of people will want to be on a list.
Yeah.
And then we can send them all of these resources and these fantastic things in the chat and so on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I must say, I think our IT department is also looking into one of these MailChimp things.
Somebody, Zainab in the group, says she'd love a newsletter. Thank you.
So, yes, I don't know if you have any good experiences with MailChimp, if that's a way to go, but we can look definitely into something like that.
Fantastic.
I've dabbled with it, and I think there is an unsubscribe option.
Sorry,
That's what you
Nicola?
need, yeah.
I've dabbled with it. I think there's an unsubscribed option for the paid
Yes.
version of MailChimp. I think it's the basic plan of, which is up to 1,000 people, is like 280 Rand. And then I think it's that you can also, with analytics.
Hi, Jeremiah. And thanks, Elizabeth.
Awesome. Okay, no, we'll definitely look into that, Nicola. And thanks, Prof, for joining us from Germany. Much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay, cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And
thanks, Nicola and Elizabeth, for chairing.
yes, we